Hello, and welcome to the Block Solid podcast, where we talk about the evolution of the property market, the newest technologies that enhance and revolutionize the world of real estate as we know it, and how we, the owners, the buyers, the renters, the investors, and the entrepreneurs can benefit from it all. I'm Yael Tamar, co-CEO and co-founder of Solid Block, pioneer in real estate tokenization, and I'd like to welcome my friend Yishai Breslauer as a special guest on today's episode. Hi, Yishai. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me, Yael. Pleasure.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to have you on, to have you share your story, how you've become a successful commercial real estate entrepreneur. And also, I'd love to hear a little more about your podcast. You also have a podcast called CRE Shark Eye Show, and how you've become this sort of Proptech thought leader with various Proptech funds, using your expertise in scouting companies, financing, all of these things. So I'd love to hear a little bit more of your story to share with our listeners who also are in real estate or are trying to get in real estate or in Proptech investing as well. Is that okay?
Sounds like an awesome thing, and we have a lot to talk about for sure.
All right, awesome. So what happened on your life journey that had the big influence on who you are today as an entrepreneur?
Okay, so basically, I have to go back because today, I'm a guy. I don't mind telling my age. I'm 48 years old. And going back, I would say about 11, 12 years ago, you're talking to a guy who just got into real estate. But prior to that, really, I was a teacher for a nice amount of time, for many, many years. I was an educator with zero plans to get into business, let alone real estate. And I was pretty happy where I was. I lived in America at the time.
What did you teach?
I taught actually Judaic studies, Jewish education. That's what I taught. And didn't think twice, never thought of doing something else. And then something happened one day, meaning we moved to another country, moved to Israel. I was still functioning in America in terms of my educational career at the time. And finances were not where they were supposed to be. And a friend of mine said, listen, you got to read a book. You got to go. I took a course. I took a this and that, whatever. It was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he sort of flew over my head. I said, what? What are you talking about? What is it? I think that Saturday night or that week, whatever, I went to play basketball, and I don't play basketball anymore. It's like I'm too old for that. I jog and do other things. But anyways, went to play basketball, landed on my ankle and completely tore my ligaments. And that was the end of my pretty much basketball career, if you want to call it that way. But anyways, lying down in bed and rethinking about everything that it has to do with everything in life, I started watching YouTube videos. You had YouTube there at the time, so it was there out there. And I started reading books. And of course, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all that stuff, started understanding what is investing. And I decided to take a course about investing, just a general thing. And I fell on real estate. And it started with a very basic thing, like how to buy a condo or a house and get cash flow and all these things. And that was the very, very, very beginning. And I got excited about this. And one course led to sort of another course. And another course led to another course. I got excited about this. And I got very quickly into financing, how to deal with financing, development, and then commercial real estate on different scales, meaning I started learning the bigger business. And I was still a teacher. I was still flying around, going back and forth, but I already did that. I took my first investment, which was more development type of investment, not so commercial, but it was more of a personal type of a thing, but it was very like development oriented type of a thing. And once I did that, I said, that's what I want to do. I want to change my career and do that. I went to a consultant, and this guy is sitting with me and he says, listen, you are 35 years old. You have zero chance to do anything but being a teacher because that's your resume. You have no resume in business and in real estate, and just give up on that idea and just go on and do whatever you need to do. And it burned me up, literally. And at that point, I decided I'm going to prove him wrong. And that was the next step. So that was the first thing that got me excited in terms of real estate and to get into real estate.
That is really cool, Yishai. So I guess that professional consultant may not, we're not going to name names here, but, I do feel like sometimes these things can make or break a person. And I love your story in a way that you did prove them wrong. And anybody can start over, especially at the age of 35, right? So tell me specifically, what can you kind of list as your major achievements up to date?
So, meaning leading to that point, I went to work in I wanted to get into a big company,
Yeah.
a development company. And that's what I did. I worked for a company called Africa Israel, a
Uh-huh.
very large company. And I started from nothing, from like the very bottom. I became the head of marketing and sales for the company in America. And at that, there was a point, I would say that the first step, like you just asked what you will name the major thing that you've done. I think it's baby steps. I would call it baby steps, like the small things that get you further.
Yeah.
And the first thing that got me there was after 3 years, almost 3 years of actually selling condos on a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I'm in the wrong, meaning even though I worked for a very big development company, I said I want to be in the commercial real estate side. And I understood that I lacked the knowledge of numbers, meaning to do acquisitions and to go
Yeah.
into all those higher level functions in real estate,
Mm-hmm.
what we call commercial real estate, CRE.
Right.
And meaning it took me time to understand it, but I think that there was 1 week that really sort of nailed it for me, kind of. I had like few meetings that week, and I met few people that some of them were younger even than me at the time, and some
Mm-hmm.
of them were much older, but all of them, meaning it was very cool because all of them had major businesses, and some of them had major real estate. One of them actually, the last guy that was I'm in touch with until this day, he comes in, I'm selling him a condo, and after 5 minutes of talking, he says to me, Yishai, stop talking. I'm like, what? He said, I already made a decision, I'm going to buy it. It was $1 million condo on paper that I sold, and he bought it. To me, it was mind-boggling. I never saw someone make a decision, $1 million decision in 5 minutes. To
Mm-hmm.
me, at the time, it was like, wow, it's a new thing. And I asked him, what do you do for a living? So the guy says, you know what? I have a fund. I have this. To me, it was like mishka babble. I didn't know what he's talking about. Says, you know what? Come to my office. I'll show you. And after a couple of
Mm-hmm.
days, I came to his office. He has funds, private equity funds. He buys multifamily assets all over the country. And I understood the scale, the ability to scale on that level at that point, and made a decision. That's what I want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
that's it. The next step was already teaching myself finances. I left that job. I was pulled in, even though I'm not an accountant, by a large accounting firm, which is a global firm called BDO. Obviously, a
Yeah.
lot of people know it. And I became the head of real estate investment banking there. And from that point, meaning it was only going up, I became eventually a CEO of a commercial real estate company that does investments, development, et cetera, in several areas, several locations, different capacities, different sizes of businesses, which I got involved with, different type of investments, etc. That was pretty much it.
Oh, what a great story. I love how a lot of people kind of pass this in accounting firm stage, one of the big 4 or 5, or maybe, big 10. I also had a brief stint at Ernst & Young, basically growing up, I would say, in my career. And the reason why I went there specifically was because I wanted to learn more corporate finance. Right at that point, and I ended up working on one of the largest, or maybe at that point, the largest IPO of a real estate company. It was for the Fishman Group IPO in Russia. They were buying commercial centers, putting anchor tenants, home center as anchor tenants. So that was just a very interesting IPO. And I can't even tell you how many Excel sheets I saw with all kinds of, and it's very interesting for real estate, even for, development and planning, has certain intricacies. So it definitely helped me in my work today, even though I kind of hated working there overall, but, it was definitely an amazing learning experience. So now you're, a successful real estate entrepreneur. And how did you get involved in Proptech? Why is that interesting for you?
Oh, so Proptech was in my previous thing. That's where we actually met at the time, through a company that had an idea to make sort of a VC, which is still in making. But at the time, the talk was starting to go, because the company I worked for was, and I'm still involved in many capacities, was a company that deals with real estate investments, but mostly with startup investments. And the idea was how to combine the two. And when we got into it, PropTech was with diapers, as we call it. It was already going. In Israel, it was nothing. In America, it was kicking, but in a very low, I would say, it was not loud enough. And, I'll never forget, I went to that first conference of MIPIM. I think it was the first conference, just, to get an idea of what's going on there. And I remember going there and walking around just as a spectator. And it was the first time that I actually saw in my eyes what is PropTech, what is property technology, how wide that world is, and what is the potential with that thing. I remember walking around and meeting all these people, and there were so many people who are huge in real estate, big names, which actually, meaning I never saw them again in that conference. From that point, they started sending the people, their people in order to the conferences. But at that point, they were just curious, what is it? What is PropTech? They wanted to see, just like everybody else, just like myself. And I remember seeing all these technologies that can actually change the world of real estate. And at that point, I understood that if you're not going to be a part of it, if you're not going to be a part of that, revolution that's called PropTech, you're going to stay behind. Obviously, it's going to take time, but just like every single thing that is involved technology and innovation, if you're not a part of it, if you don't join them, you might as well be dead. And so it's like self-explanatory. I had to do it. So that's it. That was the first, to answer the question, that was the first dip. And I decided I'm in. I want to do that. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that a lot of real estate professionals, realize that they're in the industry that is largely untouched by technology. And then when you see what's there that can add value to your real estate investment, and then you're hooked, right? That's kind of what I heard from a lot of real estate turned PropTech entrepreneurs, right? So we at Solid Block are obviously at the forefront of that, but our PropTech kind of involvement is really borderline fintech, I would say, right? So we're giving value to products and to projects by giving them liquidity. As it turns out, there is about 20 to 30%, jump in the value of a project when it becomes liquid, and not only through tokenization. We see the same thing in projects that join a REIT, a private REIT or a public REIT. We see just basically the valuation go up, and it's a no-brainer because you have an increase in availability of this project. More people can buy it. The demand increases. It kind of gives us, gets a stamp of approval from some sort of an entity that does due diligence and believes in the project. So the liquidity or the jump in the value is not unheard of, or even it also is not unusual. So Yishai, do you have any thoughts on specifically our technology or, how it fits into the PropTech sphere?
So I'll tell you, first of all, yes, I would go like this. No matter what type of technology you have to be an innovator in a way that you solve problem. You can't get into this business without being a problem solver.
Right.
So for example, let's say you have a property management software and you want to get into the property management. You have to be solving a problem. Is there a problem with property management? If you're coming and saying, I can make property management easier for the manager, for the management side, and much better for the tenant, then you solve a problem. That's great. If you come from the point of, let's say, running payments through a system, which is much easier than just doing it in a very simple and, like old-fashioned way, and it saves money and it saves time, great. If you come in construction and you say, okay, I can make it safer, better, faster, and more accurate, and all these are real issues and problems, especially the safer one in terms of safety and speed, of course, and all these things, and accuracy and correlation between things, then you're solving a problem. Same things as, it goes the same to you guys, Solid Block. You guys, for example, come with a problem and you said, listen, there's a huge problem in real estate called liquidity, which means that as a guy who's involved in all these things, and, when not every project goes great, I wish it would, it's like a thing that we always hope for. But even if it does go great, your money is stuck in there. It could be a development type of an investment. And then the time would be 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years sometimes. And sometimes it gets smeared, as we call it. It gets delayed, and it could be a lot more. But let's say it's a cash flowing deal, which could go anywhere between 5 to 7 to 10 years. And then you're in. What if you need the money? What if you need out? Then you go back to the sponsor, you go back to the fund, wherever you invested through or from, whatever. And you go to them and you say, hey, dude, I need capital now. I'm marrying my daughter, or I need to buy a house, or I need it for my business. I have some kind of a turbulence in my life, or whatever it is. Doesn't matter. and you need that liquidity and you need that capital, you're not going to be able to have it. So there's a huge advantage in real estate, which is the safety of that investment, the stability of that investment. By far the best thing in the world, the best thing since sliced bread, as we call it. But at the same time, there's the problem of liquidity. And I think you guys came with this idea, hey, we can make this happen, that even though this investment, which is totally not liquid, you could put your money in, and then in the middle, we can find you a way that you could take your money out, or even a portion of your money out. And I think this is revolutionary. So you do solve a problem. So I think that there's room for that kind of a thing.
But right, as with many solutions that start out with solving a problem, like you said, there's also sometimes technologies take unexpected turns and give a couple of other added values, I would say. We're now working with a few institutions that realize that they can almost underwrite the project and then get out early by selling it to the next investor and recycle the money many times over, right? So, but it will take time, I guess, for industry professionals to understand what can be done with it. Just like, let's say, when we started out with the internet, there was basically nobody really even thought about using it to market properties. And now, there's just, you can't even think about any other way to market a property, right?
Right.
Then, of course, word of mouth. But at the end of the day, the more it's online, the more it's accessible, the higher the value is, right?
I think that the key, nowadays, you have a cat over there.
Yeah.
I think that the key for, finding the right path for all those, especially technology like yours, which is a little bit, I would call it a little bit more complicated to explain. I think that the necessity, and that goes to all Proptech, from construction tech to fintech, Proptech, like you guys, or more related to acquisition, Proptech, or to property management, the Proptech side of that, et cetera, right? I think that the key is customer education, meaning because you just said that some people don't really understand what can it do, how well can it do to my project, what are the risks entailed, what are the bumps along the way, there are roadblocks. What am I going to bump into? And how am I, how we're going to get over it? How does it help me when I get to this or to that? So customer education is key. Meaning I think that for all people who are considering to go and have a new startup going or a new technology going,
100%.
They have to know how to solve a problem, and they have to think about the process of what is the, customer education process that will go through. If it's going to be a fortune, it could kill the entire process. But if it's something that is doable, and today through social media, podcast, as we're doing right now, and et cetera, you can actually get so much done. I'm not even mentioning conferences, because the online platform is the key to get and educate people about how, and again, without Proptech, whoever doesn't involve technology in their properties or in their business, if they're in commercial real estate or in any business, they will stay behind. Again, so I think that the part of the key is customer education. That's my opinion.
100%. I agree with that. And, when we speak to so many customers every day, because we're, one of the first in the industry to do what we do. And so we get many, many leads. And then after talking to the customers for about a year, I realized, why don't I put together a course to educate, new customers that are coming in. So I put together a 10-hour course, which basically breaks down even real estate from the beginning, right? So the whole theory of real estate investing, blockchain, and then blockchain in real estate investment. And then, after we showed it to a few customers and they loved it, we kind of decided, why don't we open it up to the public? And so we open it up to the public, and I have quite a few people now who are, without any marketing of the course, somehow find the course and then learn about what we do. So, and love it, right? Love about what we're basically breaking things down to them and step by step. This is how we do this. And technically they're able to do this even on their own, right? And kind of use our platform to provide the tech support. But as it turns out, just securitization of real estate is not a trivial matter, and you need a lot of expertise in doing it. So I think that our process, which is securitization coupled with digitization, will also allow a lot of people like you, Yishai, what happened to you in the beginning when you were entering the world of commercial real estate investing, our process will actually allow new players to come in easily because they can bring their friends, they can utilize their marketing skills, and like the newer generation is just so good at technologies that I feel like for the first time we have an industry that has a possibility to bring in new and fresh blood that has a certain advantage, right? So we can actually level the playing field a little bit with this new technology.
100%. I'll tell you, COVID happened and shut down the world. And just like many others, I sat at home and a lot of things changed for me, just like for many others. One of the things I did also, I started a course for beginners who come into real estate, want to make a career in real estate. So everybody can come into real estate today and to start going into it and to educate themselves from scratch, literally, then take the next level. And if they want to learn about technology, they can take a course like yours about tokenization and understand how to get into that, level of investment, et cetera. So people, I think that the revolution of commercial real estate as a whole, and I think Proptech has tons to do with that evolution, okay, of what we're going through and went through, is that if I go back to that, the story that Yishai, meaning a while ago when I was 35 years old, just learning about this, going through courses, I had to actually sign up to that, informal academy, which is nice. It could be always a great thing, but I had to actually sign up to a place and actually go to. And I remember when I went up to the next level and I wanted to go for commercial real estate, meaning that level of knowledge and acquisitions and finances. As you said, you went through Ernst & Young and I was in BDO. But beforehand, meaning I wanted to know the basics, I had to actually tell the people I was dealing with, send me the Excel, go through the entire pro forma, and then ask them, what is this and what is that and where is this coming from, or what is this formula and what is this and so on and so forth. And that was hard. I did it. That was hard because I was stubborn at the time to do that in order to get to that next level. But today people don't have to do it. That's the difference. That's the evolution of commercial real estate. At the time you wanted to be an expert, you had to go to NYU Shack, which is a phenomenal school. But today, if you are starting up, you don't have to. You can have all these at your fingertips. You can pay from anywhere between few tens of dollars to $100 to $300 to whatever, and have a whole course in your house, right in front of your computer, and to take you to the next level and then take action.
And no student loans.
I think that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal, meaning the world changed for the better, without a doubt.
I think so too, right? Like you said, again, anybody can do it, seems like, as long as you're, of course, smart and stubborn and, can learn things and put all your effort in. So then you'll be successful. And that's why specifically real estate industry is fascinating to me, right? Because that's like one of the very few where, you can learn on the job and then become really, really successful. You don't see that much in, things like engineering, of course, and tech and stuff like that, right? Although we do have a few interesting stories that I've seen from like rags to riches type of thing. So, but real estate is really, really special. And I'm so happy that you got into it, Yishai, and also that I got into it. So now we're here together working to make a more inclusive industry, creating more opportunities and taking more opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, what do you think is the next big opportunity in real estate or in Proptech?
Oh, wow. So first of all, let's talk real estate. And I would like to focus mostly on the US because globally it's pretty tough to start, going through everything, all the notions. But I'm saying when it comes to the US, America went through tons in the past year, and everybody knows that. And the movements are really, really interesting. And PropTech would, meaning I'll involve that, I'll incorporate that aspect in a second. But first of all, you have the aspect of the fact that pre-pandemic, we had a market that was at its top. Cap rates in certain places like New York City and the similar were so low, meaning the valuations were overpriced, very high, et cetera. And the correction was screaming to happen at some point. We didn't know when it will happen. We knew it is going to happen. And then a pandemic sort of accelerated everything in a crazy major way. But it made such an earthquake that, first of all, people, for example, from the big cities, the urban, condensed areas like New York City, especially New York City, but also from other areas and tri-state areas, started moving out, started going to, getting homes, buying homes, moving out, flattening away from the city. and it started driving all those rents down. And valuations did not go down because there was forbearance, meaning in terms of payment for the mortgages and all that stuff and for the financing. So everything was pretty much held out there. And add to that the fact that people didn't go back to work that fast because they got all those stimulus packages. And add to that the policies that each city had and lockdowns in certain cities versus other cities, et cetera, et cetera. So add all these things together and you created a crazy economy. Why? Because people, when it comes, I'm not even touching retail yet, and I'm not even touching hospitality, which those asset classes were bombarded by the pandemic. But everybody started moving out. And then it causes what? Florida to boom, and causes Nashville to boom, and Texas to boom, and Idaho to boom. And all those places that are secondary markets, all of a sudden that people say, you know what, I don't have to be in a major city. I can have a home office. I need a bigger space. I want, staying away from this whole pandemic thing. And I want to be in a place that I have a better life, quality of life. And the companies got it. And they started opening those offices in those remote areas because they pay less rent, et cetera, et cetera. So that movement towards those areas caused the cities to get hurt really tremendously. I think that's the major big thing, let alone the fact that hospitality got completely crashed, and then you have retail followed, meaning the income in retail was, people reported that rents in retail went down up to 70%. Hospitality was like 100%. It was unprecedented, but I'm saying it was crazy. So where's the market going today? We're still at that aftershock, and rents are now going up in the city, but it will take time until things will go back. Now we'll see the forbearance coming up. Valuations will go down or up. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see still.
Yeah. So New York post-COVID, what's your prediction?
I don't have a crystal ball, as we call it. And when I interview people, they always tell me the same thing. We're not prophets, but it's an opinion. It's an assumption. We already seen what policies can do. Policies are major player when it comes to real estate. So especially in New York. So we'll have to see what the next mayor will be and who and so on without discussing politics. What will happen? I mean, it's a matter of curiosity and anticipation. And the second thing would be what will happen in New York. The rents are going up. I'm assuming that the valuations are going to be shaky for a while because now you have certain areas that got hurt. So certain properties will come out because the forbearance is due, et cetera, et cetera. We'll have to see what will happen to those properties. But I do believe that New York will be back. The big, I would say, dispute is when. Okay, when will New York be back? In my opinion, my humble opinion, I believe that within 2 to 3 years from now, meaning you could even go to 4 years, but I would say, let's say 3 years to make it safe, to play it safe, as we call it, and we'll wait and see. In 3 years, I think that the city will explode. Meaning whoever got in on time, and on time, I think, is anywhere between, it's starting soon. It's going to be starting soon in the next few months. Within a year from now will be the time, I would say, to get into the city. I'm talking about major properties. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, and the fact that you alluded to the legislature or to laws or incentives, I understand that New York has kind of lost its prominence as one of the best places tax-wise to invest or to start a project. And that's all due to other states implementing better policies or New York kind of falling behind. So, I guess it all depends on that. How quickly it will bounce back depends on the decisions that the policymakers have. That's absolutely. And we see what's happening in Florida. Everybody's moving there. Real estate is increasing in prices. So it's all the result of proactive leadership. That's for sure. Now, you touched on hospitality. And, I've seen people with my own eyes, going now basically traveling, fulfilling all the travel that they couldn't do for over a year. So what do you think? There's also a lot of distressed properties out there that are being bought up. But I'm always wondering what will happen to hotels that are not on a distressed level, but because of the industry and how it turned out, the value, right now, when you can buy a distressed hotel, you can just basically take it or pick it up from the ground, right? But that's a different story of a successful hotel versus a distress. So I'm wondering what will happen to kind of like more successful properties that need some money for renovation or basically picking themselves up, right? Do you think there's a solution for them?
So I'll divide it to three. I'll divide it to three sectors within hospitality. The first sector within hospitality would be those that completely failed. Bankrupt, failed, they're gone. So those are picked up, like you said, pennies on the dollar by multifamily, mostly multifamily developers, which are going to do the whole turnaround for those and reposition them completely and turn them into a multifamily asset. Those who are more creative will do that and will do that successfully. That's the first sector. The second sector would be, I would say, those hospitality, those hotels that are still alive but are troubling. They are definitely, there's an opportunity to come in a lower price and to come and reposition it, to come in with better financing, better situation, and maybe refi it, maybe put some work into them, etc., because they were hurt, but they were still in pretty good locations. And then you have those hotels that they got hurt because of the pandemic, but they are in prime locations. It means that they are not going anywhere. It means that they are the whole hospitality industry is directly connected to the airline, the whole airline network. So that means that the second flights are back in full, and we already seeing variants, we're already seeing COVID is not completely over, etc. It will take time. It is over in certain areas and places, and hotels are getting back. It will take time though. But once everything will go back, and there'll be a solution that will get the hotels to be back and airlines to be back and business travel will be back and people will want to go back to their vacations. When that point will be back, I think there'll be an explosion in valuations of hotels, and whoever will own hotels at that time would win. Today, meaning if you want to look at who is the best to find those opportunities, I would say those deep pockets, I wouldn't call it private equity, because those people handle other people's money. That's very difficult and unpredictable and still too risky. But for those who have private money or family offices that have their own money and people with deeper pockets, they can go in and take over those buildings, those hotels, those properties, and they can wait up. They could pay the taxes. Obviously, they have to do their numbers. Each deal has, its own thing. But I'm saying they can just wait up until the whole thing will be back, because once it's back, they just make a killing. So, and that's how the rich gets richer. That's how it goes. So that's the secret of hospitality.
It is, isn't it? Also, I heard another secret is that the rich guy buys a hotel, doesn't know how to run it. The hotel is run into the ground. Then another company, or like you said, multifamily comes in, picks it up. They also don't know how to deal with it, fail again, right? And that's when the real pros come in, get the property, make a lot of money. So, I don't know whether this is an urban tale. So I don't know how true that is in real life.
Right. It's definitely true. It's definitely for real life. And I think that Proptech within all this mess had a major play, because within COVID, you found solutions through Proptech, especially property management solutions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But all Proptech, everybody understood also in terms of the investments, because real estate all of a sudden became a little bit more risky, right? People all of a sudden thought, oh my God, real estate, which was I would say the safest thing, the safest asset class to invest in, all of a sudden it's not, right? Certain properties were, but certain properties were not. So all of a sudden people started saying, maybe I'll just put my money into Proptech if I'm in real estate, because the risk aspect, which was in this tech asset class, it doesn't seem so scary anymore comparing to the real estate, which seemed so safe. Imagine let's say you invested in a hotel and you thought it's 10% cash flowing, nothing will move it. Pandemic. It's like brick in the head. That's the way it is. So that Proptech got a good boost from it.
For sure, definitely. So Proptech in general, the goal of Proptech seems to be to simplify transactions, to lower paperwork and make just the whole industry much more efficient and more secure. Well, Yishai, this has been really enlightening for me. Thank you for joining the Block Solid podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And so will you tell our listeners how to find you?
100%, very easy. Meaning all they have to do, I have a funny name. It's called Yishai Breslauer. You can see my name over there. All you have to do, if it's too hard, just highlight it, copy and paste, and you will find my, first of all, my podcast, the CRE Shark Eye Show. You can also look for the CRE Shark Eye Show, which is the commercial real estate podcast where I discuss basically commercial real estate in general and Proptech and everything. So they can find me there. And I had a show also with you, so they can find you there also. And obviously, they can follow me on those things. I have my courses for beginners, whoever wants to get into commercial real estate and wants to get their first step into this industry. They can definitely check that out. And that's it. You can check the links.
That's awesome. I'll include the links in the description. And as far as the Blog Solid podcast, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also on solidblog.co/podcast. So if anybody enjoyed the show, definitely check out Yishai's website and links, and also rate our podcast, spread the word. And thanks for listening. See you next time.